Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from our own actions, from the conscious exploration of our soul. And humor, the subtle alchemy of the psyche, reveals the profound truths in our shadow. Joy lives not only as a fleeting feeling but as a timeless presence within the human psyche, an archetype rooted in the collective unconscious. It is not manufactured by external circumstances, rather it rises like a spring from the deep inner well of our being. When we browse through episodes of happiness in our lives, moments of connection, creativity, laughter, or even quiet peace, we touch this archetypal force that has been with humanity since the dawn of time. This joy is not superficial pleasure. It is a profound resonance with the life force itself, the same impulse that drives a child to play and an artist to create. When we give ourselves permission to meet joy with openness, we discover a hidden map of our soul, revealing the patterns, symbols, and memories that shaped us. In turning toward this archetype, we no longer merely experience happiness as something fleeting but recognize it as an integral part of our wholeness, a guiding energy that calls us beyond duty and habit into the radiant truth of being fully alive. Humor, at its deepest level, is not simply a form of entertainment but a psychic tool that allows us to approach what is hidden, uncomfortable, or forbidden in ourselves. When we laugh at a joke, a mishap, or an absurdity, a small crack opens in the rigid structure of our ego. In that crack, the shadow peeks through. The repressed feelings, unspoken fears, and forgotten parts of the psyche. Humor gives us a safe, even joyful, way to acknowledge these darker elements without being overwhelmed by them. It invites us to see the irony in our own contradictions and to soften the harsh judgments we impose on ourselves. By making light of what once frightened or shamed us, we begin to integrate the shadow instead of denying it. This process is liberating rather than splitting ourselves into acceptable and unacceptable halves. We reclaim our full humanity. Over time, humor becomes a quiet form of self-compassion, a recognition that to be human is to be fallible, and to be fallible is to be whole. In laughing at our own imperfection, we take a bold step toward healing, self-knowledge, and the freedom that comes from accepting every part of who we are. Delight does not descend upon us like an accident of fate. It is cultivated through a deliberate turning of our awareness. The conscious choice of delight means deciding, moment by moment, to orient ourselves toward what nourishes rather than depletes, to notice the subtle glimmers of beauty and possibility that exist even amid difficulty. In Jungian terms, this is an act of individuation, choosing to stand in relationship with the fullness of life rather than be carried along unconsciously by its currents. When we practice this, a delight stops being a fleeting sensation and becomes a steady inner posture, a readiness to receive life as it comes. It is not a naive refusal to see suffering, but a courageous stance that allows us to hold suffering in one hand and appreciation in the other. This conscious choice can be as simple as pausing to savor a breath, a kind word, or a moment of laughter shared with someone else. Over time, these intentional gestures build an inner architecture of joy, one that supports our growth and resilience. By choosing delight again and again, we shift our psychic energy away from cynicism and despair toward vitality, playfulness, and a deeper communion with the self. In doing so, we not only experience happiness but embody, transforming our life into a living testament of how awareness can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. The self, as Jung envisioned it, is not a dry, distant ideal but a living, breathing center of our being. Creative, dynamic, and deeply playful. Beneath the layers of social conditioning and the seriousness we adopt to navigate the world, there exists a spontaneous, curious, and light-hearted energy that longs to be expressed. This playful spirit is not childish but childlike, innocent, experimental, and open to surprise. When we allow this energy to surface, we create space for creativity, spontaneity, and the joy of discovery. Play is how the psyche explores its own depths without fear. It is a ritual of experimentation, a dance between structure and freedom that helps us discover new aspects of ourselves. In our culture, we are often taught to equate maturity with solemnity, but the psyche knows another truth. The more integrated and whole we become, the more freedom we have to laugh, to improvise, to embrace uncertainty. By engaging with life playfully, we loosen the rigid defenses of the ego and invite the unconscious to participate in our daily existence. This makes us more intuitive, more imaginative, and more resilient to life's inevitable challenges. The playful spirit of the self reminds us that individuation is not merely a path of hard labor and self-analysis but also of wonder, creativity, and delight. In rediscovering play, we awaken to a life where humor and happiness are not occasional visitors, but constant companions guiding us toward our fullest potential. Laughter is not only an outward expression of joy but an inward movement of healing energy that realigns our body, mind, and spirit. When we laugh, something profound takes place. Tension melts, breath deepens, and the walls we have built around our hearts temporarily dissolve. In that moment, the psyche opens, and a hidden vitality flows freely. From a Jungian perspective, laughter acts like a bridge between the conscious ego and the unconscious, allowing previously suppressed feelings to emerge and be released in a non-threatening way. It is as if the soul sighs with relief, saying, "Wes, I can hold both light and dark. Yes, I can be whole." This healing force is not trivial. It softens grief, reduces the sting of shame, and loosens the grip of fear. Even in moments of pain, a single laugh can shift our inner landscape, granting us a glimpse of freedom beyond our immediate suffering. Over time, this practice of welcoming laughter creates a psychic environment where integration and renewal can occur naturally. Laughter also strengthens our bonds with others, dissolving the sense of separation that so often intensifies our wounds. It is a communal medicine, reminding us that no one heals alone. In embracing laughter not as escapism but as a sacred act, we give ourselves permission to be fully human, broken and beautiful, sorrowful and joyous, wounded yet capable of radiance. Through its simple but profound power, laughter leads us gently toward wholeness, helping us to remember that healing is not always solemn but can arrive in moments of genuine, spontaneous mirth. Joy through reflection is not a fleeting or accidental spark. It is a deep current running beneath the surface of our daily experiences, waiting for us to pause long enough to notice it. Reflection acts like a mirror for the psyche, allowing us to revisit the moments of our lives. Not to dwell on them with regret or longing, but to uncover the hidden meaning and beauty within them. In Jungian terms, reflection is a dialogue between the conscious ego and the unconscious, a way of retrieving the gold buried within our own story. When we take time to reflect, we begin to see the patterns, symbols, and synchronicities that thread through our experiences. Even pain, when reflected upon, can reveal a hidden grace or a lesson that shapes our future resilience. Through this inner dialogue, joy becomes less dependent on outer circumstances and more a state of being rooted in understanding and self-acceptance. We come to recognize that happiness is not something we must constantly chase, but something we uncover in the quiet depths of our own memories and insights. Reflection transforms isolated events into a coherent narrative of growth, and from that narrative springs a deeper, steadier joy, one that can hold sorrow without breaking and appreciate beauty without clinging. In this way, reflection is not an act of nostalgia, but an alchemical process that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, allowing us to live with more presence, gratitude, and authentic delight in the unfolding of our own lives. The paradox of happiness is that it cannot be seized, only invited. The more we chase it, the more elusive it becomes, yet when we stop grasping, it often appears quietly, like sunlight slipping through a window we forgot we had opened. This paradox reveals a deeper psychological truth. Happiness thrives not in control but in surrender. When we try to force happiness, we reduce it to a goal or a possession, something to be achieved or hoarded. But happiness in its authentic form is a state of flow, a natural expression of the self when the ego loosens its grip. Jung understood that psychic wholeness comes from holding opposites, joy and sorrow, gain and loss, life and death, without collapsing into one or the other. True happiness, therefore, often arises alongside its apparent opposite. We may experience it most deeply after a time of grief, in the midst of imperfection, or in recognizing the absurdity of our own struggles. Humor, too, thrives in paradox, exposing the incongruities of life and allowing us to laugh at what once weighed us down. By embracing this paradox, we no longer treat happiness as a final destination, but as a companion walking beside us on the path of individuation. It becomes less about feeling good all the time and more about inhabiting life fully, accepting its unpredictability, and allowing both tears and laughter to shape us. In this way, the paradox of happiness is not a frustration but a liberation. It frees us from the exhausting pursuit of perfection and invites us into the deeper, steadier joy of simply being. Collective laughter is a profound phenomenon that extends far beyond mere social amusement. It is a psychic force that binds human beings together, revealing the underlying unity of our shared experience. When we laugh together, a subtle resonance occurs between minds and hearts, dissolving the boundaries that usually separate us. In that moment, differences of age, culture, or status seem to fade, and we experience a glimpse of the archetypal harmony that Jung often described. A reminder that beneath the surface, we are all interconnected. Shared laughter reminds us that the absurdities, struggles, and contradictions of life are not burdens to carry alone. They are part of the human story, and acknowledging them collectively brings relief, perspective, and joy. It is also a form of communal healing, allowing groups to process tension, fear, or grief in a safe and constructive way. In a laugh shared with others, the unconscious speaks through mirth, pointing out patterns, ironies, and truths that might otherwise remain unnoticed. This kind of laughter creates a ripple effect, uplifting not only those who participate but also the environment around them, cultivating empathy, trust, and emotional resilience. Collective laughter, therefore, is more than entertainment. It is a ritual of connection, a bridge between individual and collective consciousness, and a gentle reminder that happiness, like the human soul, is most fully realized when it is shared. By engaging in this shared play, we participate in a timeless, universal process that nurtures both the individual psyche and the communal spirit. Conscious play with the unconscious is a delicate and transformative practice that invites us to engage with the hidden dimensions of our psyche with curiosity, courage, and creativity. The unconscious, as Jung described, is not merely a repository of forgotten memories or repressed impulses. It is a vast, living realm of symbols, archetypes, and potentialities that constantly seeks expression. Through humor, imagination, storytelling, and reflective play, we create a dialogue with this inner world, allowing its messages to surface in forms we can perceive, interpret, and integrate. This conscious engagement transforms the unconscious from a source of anxiety or conflict into a wellspring of insight, vitality, and guidance. Play, in this sense, is not frivolous. It is a method of exploration, a way of negotiating the tension between the known and the unknown. By experimenting with dreams, active imagination, or even humorous reinterpretations of life's events, we approach our unconscious with reverence and openness, discovering hidden strengths, overlooked desires, and novel perspectives. Such play fosters individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself, because it bridges the gap between the ego and the deeper self. Humor and joy serve as gentle guides in this journey, softening resistance and opening the mind to possibilities beyond rigid thinking. Through conscious play with the unconscious, we learn that life is not simply a sequence of tasks or challenges, but a rich, symbolic narrative in which even mistakes and absurdities have meaning. In embracing this dialogue, we awaken creativity, deepen self-understanding, and cultivate a resilient, joyful engagement with the totality of our being. The journey toward wholeness is the ultimate destination of the human spirit, a lifelong process of embracing every aspect of ourselves. Light and shadow, joy and sorrow, strength and vulnerability. In the Jungian perspective, wholeness is not a static state but a dynamic unfolding, a constant negotiation between the conscious ego and the depths of the unconscious. It is a path that calls us to integrate the disparate elements of our personality, to reconcile conflicts within ourselves, and to recognize the sacredness in both our triumphs and our struggles. Happiness and humor are essential companions on this journey, for they illuminate the path with lightness and perspective. Laughter allows us to confront the absurdities and contradictions of life without being crushed by them, while joy opens our hearts to the beauty and wonder inherent in each moment. Through the conscious integration of shadow, reflection, play, and shared experience, we move toward a state of psychological and spiritual completeness. A state in which we can face life fully, without denial, without fear, and with profound compassion for ourselves and others. Wholeness is not perfection, it is the courage to be authentic, to embrace impermanence, and to honor the complexity of our inner landscape. It is the recognition that our happiness is intertwined with the growth of our psyche, and that our laughter, our delight, and even our suffering are all threads woven into the tapestry of the self. In pursuing this journey, we discover that wholeness is not an endpoint to be achieved but a living process to be experienced, a sacred rhythm in which each moment of joy, each insight, and each act of conscious play brings us closer to the luminous core of who we truly are. Seek not only to be happy, but to understand the joy that moves within you. Laugh not to escape life, but to illuminate the profound truth of your existence.